Howdy, howdy, and welcome back to Gale FFTCG. I am Serah, your host, and today we are looking at the Water Rarity review for Opus 23. I'm so excited for this. Water got some really interesting tools and potentially some very format-defining tools. Water last set was very good. We jokingly called it the wet meta in my locals, and honestly, I absolutely adore Water as an archetype. This set really gave some cards that I personally will be tinkering with and really looking to enjoy, but I think it also gave us some good meta staples. So without further ado, I'll be jumping in and basically explaining why I think these cards, one for each rarity, are really amazing and why you should try and get a hold of them as soon as you can. So first, we've got Young Exenmile. It's Griffin Knight, 2CP 5k, which doesn't seem very impressive, but hopefully I can sell you on why this card is amazing. Young Exenmile is also a card named Exenmile in all situations. They didn't need this line of text, but I guess they assume that they're going to make another one later. There weren't any that came out this set, and that is perfectly fine. I don't think, in fact, at all, that Young Exen that they needed to print two in the same set. It's just fine. The line of text doesn't mean a whole lot, is all that I'm going to say about that. You have Pay a Crystal. Young Exenmile gains Young Exenmile cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities, and Young Exenmile's power becomes 9k, and it doesn't end at turn. So, the interesting thing is the way that Final Fantasy works in when you cast things, if something enters the field and does not have an enter the battlefield effect, your opponent cannot respond to it unless an ability goes on the stack. Young Exenmile doesn't have that. So it's a 2CP 5k that seems rather weak, but as long as you have a crystal, when this enters, you can choose not to pay it because your opponent has no window in which they can respond to it. You can pay the crystal, your opponent can respond to it then, but if you've been building up crystals for a little while, you can just put this back on the stack, and they still can't really respond to it. What's particularly interesting as well is that there's not a lot of abilities that can just target Young Exenmile for free. Maybe Palomar Porum could do that. But because its ability becomes makes it become 9k, that's really good for preventing things like Brynhildr that would normally pick this kind of card off. The change in power is really kind of what makes this really strong. Being untargetable by abilities and then also being able to survive over the larger numbers, or at least to run par with those numbers, is really strong. So I think this card reads maybe poorer than it plays. Definitely don't sleep on this card. The other cool thing about this card is that you can pay a water and spend a crystal, tap Young Exenmile, and search for a water forward of cost 3 and play it onto the field. There are already some decent ones. This card can search for 3CP Lena, so you can get Leviathans out. This card can search for a new card that we're going to talk about, a couple of new cards, in fact, that we're going to talk about. There's a lot of potential in this card, and the more 3CP water forwards they print, the better it will get, and I think that's just super great. And because it's so hard to kill, your opponent either will not want to use the resources, or will have to use so many resources that to take it off the field the turn it comes in, that you kind of are okay if it dies because your opponent's already put so many cards in. The likelihood that you'll be able to get off this activated ability is fairly high just because of that first ability to make it untargetable by abilities and also buff its power. So, yeah, I think Young Exenmile is going to be a perfectly good card and is definitely a legend to look out for. So, going straight on to one of our Young Exenmile targets, Witch of the Fens. This card is amazing. It is FFTA2. I feel like that was relevant. It might be relevant at some point, but not too much to say, to be honest. 3 EP7K, water forward. When it enters the field, if you control a monster, draw a card. This set basically gave us, like, a ton of monsters. It gave us, I want to say it gave us like 12 monsters or something. Maybe even more than that, but 12 off the top of my head. Like 2 in each element, and that's just insane already. Being able to draw a card off of cards that just naturally sit around and are hard to interact with seems pretty good. Obviously, that means this is open to Amaterasu, etc. But I could see this being played in and alongside fire cards and other things. There's a few fire cards set that like punish casting summons and things. So I think this card is going to definitely, at least if you owe me it, it's going to be a feel bad sort of thing. And this first ability is kind of okay, but the second one, oh my gosh, the second one is incredible. You can put one monster into the break zone. You choose one monster. It loses 7,000, or one forward, sorry. It loses 7,000 power until end of turn. That's nuts. So you could play your cards for value, then you can sack them and just kill something straight away. Maybe, there's a, maybe that, blue worm is never swinging through. Maybe you want to get a draw off of a piranha. The mono water decks are running a lot of piranhas just now. Oh, I sack this, I kill something, and also I get to draw a card. That seems pretty good. So I think that there are so many applications, and I could go into all of them, but just don't have the time, really. Yeah, Witch of the Fens is awesome, and I love it so much. Another awesome card, and another young X and Mile target, ironically, is Lilizette. 3CP 7K Dancer. I am a big fan of the Dancer deck, so this is great to see. EX Burst, when Lilizette enters the field, you can search for a job or card named Dancer and add it to your hand. What? This is incredibly good. Archetypes like samurais and some of these other kindred kind of archetypes are really powerful. And they've all basically, their dominance has all started based on a card like this that says search this specific job and add it to your hand. Or at least those are the ones that start leaning towards the buff. We've had it for Dragoons. We had something similar for Dragoons anyway. We've had it for Samurai, and Dancers getting it now is great. We also have Rousing Ramba, or Rousing Samba, sorry. Rousing Roomba, I don't know, like, it's just a special, just pitching a copy of Lilies that will do it. Until end of turn, all the forwards you control gain plus 2k, and all the forwards opponent controls lose 2k. So this is really great. Obviously, we can buff our board over a bunch of board wipes and things that are damage-based. Cyan, the new Crystal Cyan from last set, really hates this card. It does kind of replace the Lightning Lilizette, but in reality, what this says is actually, it's just an extra EX burst for the deck, and you choose which one you want to play based on the scenario that you need to, play it in. So I think this is fine because both copies of Lilizette and even the multi-element Lilizette all are card named Lilizette and all have a special. It means you can run all 9 copies if you really wanted to and not feel 100% bad about it. So yes, I think this card is great, and definitely try and get your copies soon because I think Dancers has a bright future ahead of it. And finally, Dancers also got a backup, and Dancers really have needed some 2CP backups that are not just wind, or not bad wind cards effectively, and this card does just that. When Dancer enters the field, you choose a forward, loses 2k power until end of turn, and if you control 5 or more backups, all of the forwards opponent controls lose 4k until end of turn. That last effect of having 5 backups, that happens pretty easily, actually. I would argue it's probably one of the simpler things that the deck can actually do is get to 5 backups. It does require you time it a little bit, but if you have this and a Lilizette and a Lilizette special, you could potentially knock out some of the weaker boards in the game. I think this is actually really great. I think it gives the list a little bit more just staying power. It means combat is very tricky for your opponent, and it means that the weaker dancers can still punch up through your opponent's kind of bigger numbers. But yeah, that is the end of the video. Let me know in the comments below what you are excited to see for Opus 23. Let me know if your thoughts on some of these cards, and let me know if there are any other videos or decks that you want me to cover after the new set has dropped. Have a great day and a great rest of your week.